is in less than 2 weeks, a week from this upcoming Thursday. So I wanted to get you on to talk about how do you see the rest of I don't know if you call it Moonvember playing out. Would you call this Moonvember? I mean, it's typical that sometimes the first 2 weeks of a month things can be really shitty, right? And then just like go parabolic like last year in October, right? October, we didn't see shit for like what 28 days, and the last 3 days it went crazy, right? So what is the feeling right now? Today's the 18th, right? Of November. What's the feeling going into the rest of the month?
I mean, it's not reminiscent of anything that anybody would have thought with an October. You thought that you would continue the ride, but here we are, November 18th, and we are not in the best possible place, I would say. Um, yeah, when you have Bitcoin, the official account tweeting 42,000, it makes you wonder like what is actually going on and what is actually happening. So it's very difficult to say, but I think you also then have yesterday the most genius person in the world, the highest IQ, saying Bitcoin's going to 225,000 before the end of the year. So
Yeah, so you have all the okay, so we have to talk about this before we go any farther. So okay, so we have 6 weeks, well, a little less than 6 weeks left in this year. We have this week, next week, and then 4 weeks of December, right? So where are these predictions coming from? With like this guy saying it's 225,000, Tom Lee is still out there shilling $7,000 per Ethereum, like by the end of the year, and he's saying at least $200,000 per Ethereum. This you're saying this last week. Is that even possible?
anything's possible in this space, you know that. I think that December generally is a great month regardless because people are trying to, people, uh, traders on Wall Street, investment brokers, and those types. They want to maximize their return for their bonus. So they're scrambling, especially the first 2 weeks of December, try to get as much returns as possible. So I do think that that plays a lot into it, but we're at 92,000 right now. How we go from 92 to 200 to 225? Like, we got to get to 130 first, and then we can start talking about, 200,
Yeah, because
even like 150.
there was a bank, I forget UBS or one of them, like back in July. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, everybody, I messed up. My predictions were too low." And he's like, "Okay, we're gonna get to 200,000 by the end of the year, but first we're gonna hit 130,000 by the end of September." That didn't plan out. So if you say that doesn't plan out, I mean, so what I'm trying to say is, if we're gonna get to 225,000 per Bitcoin, right, and 7,000 per Ethereum by the end of the year, we're by Thanksgiving weekend, which is the last weekend of the month, basically. Where do we have to be at?
And we got to start breaking through previous all-time highs. We have to be at least at the very top of, and over $100,000, because that $100,000 is a barrier that we shouldn't have gone below. And now that we are below, my feeling is that we go a little bit lower. I mean, if this is all to flush out all the leverage that's in the market, I mean, we flushed out a lot. I mean, you see the alerts all the time now, 100 billion was liquidated from crypto in the last hour and whatnot. So for that to continuously happen, like, I don't think there's anybody left that's going to sell. And those that do are capitulating if they do. And if you're capitulating, what are you capitulating for? Like, is it like a broader macro thing? Like, I know a lot of people say that, the AI bubble, and everybody's very much concerned. I saw literally just like before we got on that Nvidia is going to invest $10 billion in Anthropic, and it's like it's just this money that's being spread around about all these companies, that has effects in the market, and those effects are going to be felt obviously in the crypto market because it's a higher risk asset. People are going to try to get the heck out of it if they know that a bubble's going to pop.
Definitely,
So
because even like the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, just like an hour ago, breaking news, he announced that they're going to increase their $600 billion
ten,
investment to 1 trillion, right? And a
one
lot of it's going to go to
trillion.
AI.
Yeah, and it's you wonder like when you say it's going to go to AI, it's like a black hole. Like what does that even mean? It's going to go to chips, data centers, like what is it exactly? Like is it higher? Because not really hiring. I mean, there was a 60 Minutes
Yeah, they're
report.
firing like crazy all over the
I
place.
know,
So it's not going to go
and
to
and and
employees.
and and you have like Anthropic using Claude to do its own code. So where's this money going to go towards? And is it super inflated? This is very reminiscent, and I wasn't really like I mean, I was in high school, I think, at the time, but the dot-com bubble. I was in probably grammar school. So long ago. I'm dating myself, but that dot-com bubbles is reminiscent because a lot of people were just throwing money at this. Oh, this is gonna be the best new thing or whatnot. And then all of a sudden now, I mean, a few years later, you had the bubble burst.
But the strong ones
Basically,
survived though. The strong ones survived
for
long term,
sure,
right? If you would have held through the bubble, or at least invested, sold at the top of the bubble, and reinvested at the bottom in proper companies, right? You would be in the green right now, right? Well, I
for
mean,
sure, like an Amazon or
like
like
billions of
yeah,
dollars. I think somebody said that if you invested $2,000 at the bottom of the dot com bubble in Amazon, you'd have around like a billion something right now, which is insane, by the way.
it is. And I think that that's also telling about who's going to be in this for the long run, right? And I think that you could have that kind of mentality for crypto. Like if things do go bad, and like I don't think it's going to go to 42,000, that seems wild to me. I mean, anything could happen, but if it
It's
does,
unlikely. Let's just say it's unlikely.
the probabilities are low, but anything could happen, right? And
Anything
if
can
it
happen. It
did,
goes zero, technically,
I
right? There's
mean,
always a chance.
let's just say even 65 or previous all time high from last cycle or whatever, 69, that range. Are there going to be willing parties to step in and buy? Is the Michael Saylor going to capitulate? Are the Tom Lees going to go away and like their funds be destroyed because they over leveraged a lot of their funds on crypto?
Something I want to say is that Michael Burry left after like so many bad calls. The only call he got right in the past, in his whole industry career was the one with the 2008 housing crisis.
Yeah,
Everything else after
the
they got wrong.
subprime mortgage.
But but even so, if you would have told me this, like, oh, Tom Lee might just go away and it might crash, like a week ago, I'd been like, no, that's impossible. But now that Michael Burry did it, it's like anything's possible, right? So,
Yeah, sure.
generally speaking, let's talk about some positivity, okay? So you are a Bitcoin maxi, and I mean that respectful in the sense that you are about, okay, let's make as much money as possible trading these other altcoins, and then use the profits to get back into Bitcoin, right? It's like Pokemon, catch them all if you can. Maybe
100.
that's not bad, maybe that's not great, but you know what I mean. Well, the millennials know what I mean. Some of the Gen Z. So how do you feel the ETF inflows, especially like the fact that we had like three Solana ETFs come out today? XRP ETFs are coming out this week. We've had Solana out for 2.5 weeks, I believe now. XRP ETFs were the best performing ETF of the year last week. Do you think that that's going to lead to a rotation since there's outflows out of Bitcoin and Ethereum into the XRP and Solana, and we're going to see like a mini altcoin season there? Or do you think that this is just temporarily and we're going to revert back to Bitcoin and Ethereum pretty soon? Or there's a whole market going to go up the next 2 weeks?
It's tough to tell because being the maxi that I am, if Bitcoin rises, everything else rises. If Bitcoin falls, everything crashes. And the timing is very interesting that these ETFs are being launched because um, there's not as much as enthusiasm. You look at things like the fear greed index. It's like a
You
10
had
or
6 weeks of
11.
the government closing. The biggest employer in the world in the country is the federal government, right? So that's a lot of
Right.
money that went into the market. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are all the factors, and then you have consumers that are reticent to start buying, and like prices are expensive for basic household staples, and this those kinds of risky investments like the ETFs only work when the economy is doing phenomenal, right? Where people are just like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. The crypto ETFs have no inherent value, right? They're not solving any challenges that are needed at this point in time for the average retail investor
Definitely. There's
or
somebody that told
consumer.
asked me if he could ask XRP, if he could buy XRP ETFs. So the interview I did yesterday, and I was like, why don't you just buy a spot in Coinbase? He's like, what's that? Let me just go buy an ETF. But he's like, in his 70s. So people like that aren't really into crypto, like you're saying, are the ones that would buy this product. It's not like the average person or under 45 that's going to go buy an ETF.
Right. Well, I mean, the ETFs
So probably.
inherently will raise the price because they're supposed to be buying the underlying asset in the treasury to, prop up the ETF. But where I'm kind of getting at is this is such a risky asset. Like that person who is more traditionally financially focused, why would they want to put their money in such a risky asset, especially this time when the market's really like not doing as great as it can. Like we've had, three or four straight days of loss, and that doesn't count for anything in the long scheme of things. But my interest is like this timing of these ETFs. Is it because they just received approval they want to go through, um, or are institutions now ready to like buy the bottom? Because I think
Definitely.
that that's also very telling if you start seeing those inflows go up on these new ETFs, then basically institutions are buying, they're going to prop this up, and then maybe you have now a continuation of a bull run. But right now we're choppy, we're holding steady, and that's not going to be good to get to those all-time highs. You speaking about good news, I just saw today before too that 2026, the SEC is doesn't put crypto as part of like their special
That's a
cases
really
thing.
good thing. That's a really good thing.
It
It
is a
means that
great
they're basically
thing,
trying to get rid of everything. I mean, I could say this. I can't say too much, but like I told you, the SEC yesterday sent me an email. Hey, we just opened back up, and they called me a half hour ago. They're trying to get things moving fast, very fast, so they can finish everything by the end of the year, in my opinion. So the next year, they don't have to worry about crypto, which is what we
right? They
want,
they
right?
they don't. Yeah, you don't want to be. You don't want the crypto to be on SEC's radar for like, oh, more enforcement or regulation.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. I like what you said. It
that's
was like,
so
oh,
crime time is
band-aids.
back next year. So 2026 looks positive for a lot of reasons, but we have to. I mean, I always go back to 2017 and 18. Like, and I know that I'm, dating myself even with that, but that's that cycle and that exuberance that you felt once we hit, $18,000, $19,000 in Bitcoin, and then, I think XRP was almost at two, and all this stuff was going on. That was a great time. You just don't feel that again.
You haven't really
And
felt that since the beginning of the actually since the end of the year. I think the day that President Trump took office, like that was it. That was like the euphoria top. July was just
right.
like the afterflow. But talking about like you said choppy, right? Let's go back to that for a second. So we're already starting to plan for 2026. You said that, right? Let's just go from now till December. Literally 2 weeks from today is gonna be December 2nd, I believe. So the next 2 weeks, Thanksgiving, I'm basically saying, okay, how are the market's going to go into December? What key support and resistance levels should like traders be watching as we head into December? Like, okay, let's just say Bitcoin and Ethereum. What are the keys, resistance, and support levels that you're looking at?
I mean, for Bitcoin, is like I said before, it's $100,000, right? That should have been support, and it could still very well be support if we get over it. But for right now, the weekly doesn't look great, and the biggest support that I see now is $84,000.
Okay, and what's the
Like we,
resistance level that you're looking at?
I mean, it would again be $100,000.
Okay.
That would be resistant for Ethereum. If I had to check, let me see real quick.
What are you doing this? Okay, so resistance support. Basically, you're saying let's throw this out the window and let's just look at 100,000. Let's get up above 100,000 and let's
Yeah,
see if we get below $84,000. I have a question
it's
follow up with
yeah.
that after Ethereum. Go ahead.
Yeah, Ethereum is like about the same. I mean, $3,000 is support, and resistance is. I mean, it's getting lower, but the main resistance, the top of it, was about 4,300. So I would say 4,000, another round number. So those are the two levels that if we get on top of, probably another bull run, and if we get below $3,000, we're looking at pain.
Okay, so right now, that's good analysis. Is there any scenario at all, where basically XRP ETFs keep launching, Solana ETFs keep launching, they go crazy with inflows the next week or so, next week and a half, and Bitcoin just collapses and goes to $84,000? Is there any scenario where basically XRP and Solana hit new all-time highs because of these inflows from TradFi and Bitcoin crashes, or that can't happen?
I mean, anything could happen. I just don't envision it because a lot. If so, I'm going to do something that a lot of people are not going to like. If you're a fund and you have all these quants and or these big institutions and you have all these PhDs on staff
Or
and
AIs? No, I'm
supercomputers
kidding, I'm kidding. Go
or
ahead.
AIs, and you're
It's
doing
coming.
what you're supposed to be doing, fundamental analysis, and the fundamental analysis always goes towards Bitcoin as being the superior crypto or whatever. So I don't see a fundamental analysis weighing Ethereum or Solana over crypto unless it's like mass adoption through a stable coin or something like that. I just yeah, I know Solana announced like a partnership with Western Union that they were building something on Solana's
A
rails.
partnership that they paid
Yeah,
for, by the way, $25 million. But hey, business is business.
business is business, man. So
Exclusivity, yeah.
to the question, I don't see us getting to that level with Bitcoin and then everything else performing it. I mean, there are outperformers of Bitcoin all the time. That's facts. But in terms of long term, like even like let's just say the next 3 months, I just don't see any of these alts outperforming
That's
Bitcoin
why I
that
say like the next month
sense.
because we saw it back in April, I believe. Deep Book outperformed the market at like 500%, right? The SUI liquidity layer, and then in September, October, I believe, while everything was kind of crashing or stagnant, Zcash outperformed like 700%. So you never know. But on that, right?
Yeah.
So what indicators like? Which projects are giving the clearest indicators right now? Is it Bitcoin and Ethereum, or do you see XRP Solana? By the way, I'm focusing on these four because these are the four projects that have futures contracts and ETFs, and to a certain extent, clear regulatory framework around them. Again, to be on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, you have to have a lot of regulatory clarity, and they've all been on there at least for 6 months. Bitcoin like, since 2018, right? Out of Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP Solana, which one is giving you the clearest signals right now, and why?
And it's all going to Bitcoin, you know. However Bitcoin performs, everything else is like I use the analogy like all boats rise. Like if Bitcoin's rising, everything else is gonna rise with it. And because it just gives the health of the market and of this space. If people are and you saw this, like BlackRock was pulling out of or sending some Bitcoin to Coinbase to sell or whatnot. Those are not great signals where the opposite, like if you had to inverse them, they're still not great signals for XRP or Solana or ETH because if the inflows are coming out of Bitcoin, why would they go into these ETFs? If it's just purely maybe a manipulation play, like, you know, a BlackRock could essentially say, you know what, we're going to step in, we're dumping our Bitcoin ETF, and we're going to focus solely on Solana. Well, I
Well,
think you could
BlackRock
see,
specifically,
yeah,
they just FYI, BlackRock does not have. They only have Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I know what you mean. Like Fidelity has all four, I believe, right?
yeah,
Or Kubernetes.
yeah, as an example. But I just don't see those inflows or I'm sorry, those outflows are probably there to sit and wait until shit gets lower, and then they could step in again and rebuy at a
Yeah,
lower
because
price.
my understanding is that Bitcoin. The reason why you're saying this, correct me if I'm wrong, is because when Bitcoin crashes new all-time highs, that's when liquidity goes from Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin doesn't just collapse when everything else is collapsing around it, right? That doesn't typically happen.
Yes and no, but it's more about Bitcoin dominance. If Bitcoin's not the dominant asset, then you could and we are in a trending upwardly trending market, then those outflows could potentially go on to others because people are trying to find the maximum yield that they can.
Of course, yeah.
And you know they hit probably like a threshold with Bitcoin because again, people have to start buying at the top, right? And if you have something that you know was up, you know, a crazy amount, and then you know after Bitcoin crashes it's down 50%, and it's still a healthy project like you know the ones you mentioned, Solana, ETH, or whatnot, and XRP, then you could see them stepping in and saying, "No, no, no, we want to actually buy at this new bottom for these to kind of prop them up." They're trying to extract yield. That's what they don't give these institutions just don't give a damn about the space.
And they don't care
Like
about technology. People are like, "Oh, the
they
technology." A
don't.
lot of my friends are like, "Oh, the technology. This project has some of them you don't you know some of them you don't know in real life, but oh, the technology is better for this. Just for example, oh, for Caspa, it's the best technology. Oh, it's Ada is the best technology. Like, listen, they don't care about this. They care about what's the easiest blockchains to use for the cheapest fees and which makes the most money for their customers. So, how important would you say it is to understand perpetual futures trading in these volatile markets, right? Like the one we're in now, because you're teaching me how to do this and I've been learning with other people because I think that there's a lot more money to be made in perpetual markets in the short term. Would you say that's correct? Why or why not?
Yeah, I mean, perpetual trading isn't for. I mean, it's trading. It's not investing. So there is a lot to be made and there's a lot of yield to extract, but it also depends on the time, right? Because you could go short on a lot of these positions and you would have made a boatload of money. But if we're still macro in a bull run and you're going short, you can really get steamrolled in case like, you know, there's a news watcher guru or something pops out with the news of a new investment, a new ETF, now you're gonna get steamrolled. So that's the tricky part, right? Like even like this market when you're trading perpetuals and they are short opportunities, they're very short, right? In that sense, like you have to time them. So these are not things that are going to be lasting as trades for days or weeks. These are short-term volatility spikes that are happening where people are selling. You see open interest coming down on some of these positions, and then you know traders step in and say, you know what? it's going to go lower. Virtuoso put out a call or a signal. This was I think almost like 2 weeks ago. That's still pretty active on a Bitcoin short.
And you pulled
And I
out
think,
you've been putting out a few of them. I think you put one out like last Thursday as well, right? Again, it's probably
yeah.
even more, like to 93,000, which I was like, oh my god, this guy's actually right. But go ahead.
Well, that's the issue. It's like even when I see those signals, it gives me pause because I'm not that I'm not a fan of shorting. I think that there's a place and time for it, but I don't think we're there yet where you could have a huge short or the big short and
You mean
say,
like the like the bear markets? Like somebody says on YouTube and Twitter, he says that the real money's made in the bear market when you're shorting the market like crazy when while it's going down. Is that what
all
you
right, well,
mean?
you have to catch a top, and it could be argued that we hit a top. That could be the argument. We could chop at these levels between 90 and 100,000 for weeks, months. We don't even know yet what's that what's that going to be in that market.
But with
What's going to be
seasonality though, like you just said that they're trying to make as much money as possible. Do you really realistically see that happening though?
I can see us chopping for a bit because the money could have just already been made, right? And we're cashing out. And that's the other part too, that in this time, what we don't know is if there's going to be a cash out. And all these institutions are saying, you know what? Fun's over for now. We're going to take our profit and run because they stepped in very low and considering, they didn't step in, at $4,000 where it was 2 or 3 years ago, um, or 5 years ago now. But in that COVID low, but they bought even Michael Saylor, he's buying at the top. When is it that their number is to capitulate?
Well, there were some
Or
DApps, right? Some digital asset treasury companies that have already sold some of their digital asset holdings, which I'm actually kind of shocked about, by the way. But hey, it is what it is. Like you said, some people are just making some money for the end of the year, right? Some people they have tax purposes, they
yeah,
have a lot of accounting to do. So I want to do this one last thing so we can get on with that. I know you have family to attend to, and I gotta have a few
we have
calls as
everything, bro. We
well.
have we have it all, man. We don't stop here.
But there's one last thing though. Thanksgiving Day price predictions. So a lot of people are gonna go back to their grandparents and they're gonna be like, "Holy shit, Grandpa made 11% with his S&P holdings the past year to year since last Thanksgiving, and I'm actually down a percentage or
Yeah.
two on Bitcoin or whatever it is." So, what is your best case scenario? We already okay. Let's just assume that the most likely scenario is we chop for all these projects. It's gonna be the same exact price today for Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm gonna go one by one. Bitcoin. What is your worst case scenario for Thanksgiving Day? Your best case scenario for Thanksgiving Day. Shoot.
I think probably 84 for worst and best. If we're at like 98, 99, 100, that's because I don't think we're going to be shooting past 100,000 anytime soon. I think we're going to chop in this zone for a while, at least until December.
Okay, that's fair. Ethereum. What is okay? Best case, most likely scenario. Where we're at today. What's your worst case scenario and your best case scenario?
I mean, I think it could get worse today than today, but all things being said, I think maybe we could get to 3,600, 3,500 by in 2 weeks.
That's the best case
Um,
scenario. That's by Thanksgiving Day.
that's that's best case. Worst case is I think we're gonna see below 3,000.
Well below 3,000 or like 2,800.
Let me check if there's support down there because that's the other thing too. Like who's stepping in and buying, at these prices.
Justin Sun. I'm
We,
kidding.
we we
Well,
also have to talk about the other fact that is the Fed going to cut again, right? Those are like
oh,
other
they're
factors. I
cutting.
think that
They're cutting. They're dude.
we
Everything's coming
we
out. The
haven't
jobs
remember
the market.
there's been a month lag of data, so they're a month behind on all the
They're
data.
catching up, and it's looking really bad. It's looking worse than we thought, which makes you think conspiracy theories. But sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead. What was it? What was your worst case scenario for Ethereum?
I think we could get worst case 2,700. I do see
That's not
support at 3,000, but 2,700 is not great, and it's a lot of work to do to get back up to those highs of almost five.
man. I
So
remember when I was excited. I was really excited in July, in June, July, when I was like, "Yeah, 2,700." Oh, you know,
yeah, that was a support.
but
And that
yeah,
was
but that
that
was like great, right? 3,000. Yeah, we hit 3,000. How times change. Okay, now for XRP, what's your? Let's assume again. That most likely scenarios right now. What's your worst case scenario and your best case scenario? And try to for XRP and Solana, try to factor in the fact that we are seeing inflows, and let's
for you
just
said
make the
XRP.
assumption that we're going to keep seeing inflows.
XRP or Solana?
for this. So both XRP and Solana, but first XRP first, then Solana. Worst case scenario and best case
XRP
scenario.
is just so fucking choppy, man. And like on some of the exchanges, you wick down on in October, you wick down to $1.27. So that wick down is very telling, and I think that that's worst case scenario. I think we might get back there for XRP. I mean, best case, there's resistance at $2.70. We're at 23 now. So I think we could get. I think we're gonna get much lower on XRP. I don't even with the ETF. I don't see, and it's also beneficial for the ETF to have it at this price because they could buy. They could really like
It takes them 2 days to
put
buy
a
it.
lot of
From the
funds.
moment that somebody buys the ETF, then they have to go. They have 2 days minimum to buy it, to go out and buy it. They have to wait 2 days. What I mean, the issuer Solana to buy the underlying asset. Solana. What is your worst case scenario for? Again, all these are all for Thanksgiving Day. What is your worst case scenario and your best case scenario?
So right now is at buck 44.
Which is
We're at the
higher, by the way, than
middle.
yesterday. It's been pumping, right? Yesterday was at
Yeah,
130, right?
we're at the middle of the range, and it's popping up from there. So I think that there are some buyers at this area. So the lowest that we could probably get maybe is I would say like 125. Looking at it now, and then I guess by Thanksgiving. I mean, this is a couple weeks. I think
No, it's literally
a
less
buck
than like a week from this upcoming Thursday, Thanksgiving, dude.
a
It's
buck
going fast.
75 maybe, like
175?
175. Yeah, yeah. It's there's a lot of resistance in that zone. 190, 175, 190. That's a very choppy supply driven zone. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure. If the through line is that there's a lot of pressure overall on these markets, I think there's a lot of selling pressure that's going in based off, you see the open interest and also the news. Like you have outflows. Those are not going to be great until that the paradigm changes. And just one other quick thing, because I did also work on something that we haven't spoken in a while. So I have a on hype. I'm able to see the leaderboard now, and I could see the consensus of what all the top whales are in. So if I did that, let me see here. One second. Um, I think a lot of them are short still, and that's not going to be great overall until those whales flip. It's just not wise to, you know, go against people who have much more money. And yeah, the consensus is bearish all around. Bitcoin, Sol. The only thing that's actually sort of bullish is Zcash, but not by much. And yeah, it's you have a lot of whales that are plugging into these positions that there's no confidence. I mean, out of the top, 20 some odd whales, 16 of them are in short positions right now for Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, if anything does change though, because remember things can change, right? We could do bears today. Something can happen. We can go parabolic next week, right? It has happened before, right? We can only see what's in front of us right
It
now, and we got to
does,
play the
but
field.
remember, like, and then the way that I look at it, and I think a lot of people should look at like whale trading when you think about it, these are movers of markets. So based on the consensus that they have amongst each other, that's sort of maybe like a precursor for how everything's going to trade. Because if you're trading with some of these positions are 25, $30 million, I mean like net positions are like almost $100 million. um, they have more information, you would assume, than you do. um, that's what makes them whales. So that's why following them and seeing their movements is very important, because they're going to move the market, and however they go, everybody else is going to go, because again, they're operating with such huge positions. I just until they start flipping, and then you see a majority of them becoming bullish, we're not going to get those new all time highs.
Definitely, it's okay, and I understand that. But if anything does change, I'll have you on shortly before Thanksgiving, probably like the Wednesday or something, right before
That'd
Thanksgiving,
be
or the
cool.
Tuesday.
Yeah, man.
If things change, right? Obviously, Thanksgiving, we're all gonna be off. We're all gonna be on
Even
vacation,
now,
having
I think
turkey.
it's a good progress to see how we are, and inevitably, I do think that whatever happens in the next few weeks is not going to be a total determinant. I think starting December, it's a new month, but it's also a new paradigm towards the end of the year, and those first few days of December are going to be very telling for the rest of the month, and then how everything performed during the year. So yeah, we'll keep our eyes peeled.
Definitely. With that being said, I'll let you go. Upwards and onwards, my friend. I'll talk to you offline.
Take care, guys. Peace, love.